Nice. Sorry about that. A little bit late. I don't need to apologize. Fuck you. It's my stream. Why did I do this? You know what? Never mind. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Except do worry about it because we talk about current events on this live stream, so there's plenty to worry about, but you know what I mean. I've just started and I'm not I'm tired is what I'm saying. God damn. I had a busy day yesterday, is what I will say. Wasn't there a hot fix or something? There was, but it was a little while ago. I'll hit the update button anyways, just in case. You ever get the feeling when people say stuff about you, you get tired of dealing with it? Because I have that feeling sometimes. You know, I feel like there was a point in time where I was worried about what kind of gossip was going on about me particularly, but now I don't actually care. And it's a very liberating feeling. This took place over the course of like 3 years, where gradually I was able to let go of that, particularly because like I used to get into internet arguments a lot more frequently. Because I'm a very combative and argumentative person. But like I used to get that feeling sometimes, the nagging feeling, but now I don't care. It was not a good feeling. I'm glad I don't generally engage with that anymore. You know? But I do think I know what that feels like. I don't feel it that much anymore, but yeah. God, I can imagine as well, especially if you have family that you're still in contact with that's like really toxic. That must suck. Luckily, uh, my parents have long since like cut contact with most of the, or not cut contact, but like not really kept in consistent contact with the really toxic parts of the family, or at least they've been very responsible not to involve me in that, because I have no desire to be associated with people like that. And by people like that, I mean like extremely conservative aunts, uncles, and cousins in Appalachia who would probably at the first like news of me being a queer socialist would either disown me, tell me I'm going to hell, or like uh some combination of things, you know. I'm generally removed from that sentiment nowadays, which I am thankful for. Mostly like I don't have the energy to deal with lies in conversations. Oh yeah, like if somebody lies about you in conversation or some shit, like wow. Yeah, I don't think I've ever had that experience where we've been in conversation and somebody's just like repeated some like gossip. I'm never like involved in it enough for somebody to even have that kind of uh uh motivation to just say some shit like about me. And like I said, if there are any family members like in the family who I feel like may be inclined to do that, I'm long since not been like in any sort of contact with them. So yeah, that I can't really relate to. Fuck it, Luigi time. How was your day under the rule of Palpatine? Uh, I'm not gonna lie, I've been better. You know? Every day I look at the news cycle and it's just like fucking bleak. You know? And that's not me saying that I've lost hope or anything. I have not. Do not under any circumstances lose hope. But yeah, it's fucking rough looking at the news. I guess the subject of the day here, I have 2 news articles ready for the shit that I wanted to talk about today. And then I was just gonna, like, talk about some personal shit. And by personal, I don't mean, like, personal drama. I mean, like, fun stories and things going on in my life. Friendship is magic, literally in real life, like unions. Yes, exactly. Like, literally, what if the real proletarian socialist revolution was the friends we made along the way? But, like, that's for real and also forever. And yes, that's true. So much of reactionary fascist ideology, the engine driving it is profound antisocial tendencies. You know, this, like, extremely weird, repressed psychosexual energy that gets displaced onto wanting to control women and hurt minorities and shit. It's, like, a lot of that literally comes from, on a personal level, people not having friends. If you have friends and you have a, like, relatively normal and well-adjusted social life, you are less likely to be a fascist. And studies have found this. Like, there's data to back that up. Like, you have to be subject to some crazy fucking antisocial biases and circumstances to go down the pipeline of fascism. Like I said, like, these people are fucking miserable, and friendship is magic. You know what? Fuck it. Friendship is, in fact, magic. The real socialism is the friends we made along the way, or something. You know? I mean, you know, like, there's a reason the backbone of modern fascism is the terminally online, like, incel, insecure, unfuckable young man, right? Those are all, like, a combination of circumstances. The insecurity, the psychosexual energy that's, you know, all pent up, the antisocial tendencies, the hatred of women and minorities, all of that stuff combines to create a perfect storm that would drive somebody towards fascism, you know? I have 2 friends? Well, good on you. I'm glad you have 2 friends, and not fewer than 2 friends. That's good, I think. I'm gonna just throw this forward. Yeah. Racing very sloppily, but I am in first. I don't think I want to let go of this mushroom. Yeah, there we go. And that's why. Because you can dodge, like, unlike in Mario Kart 8, where red shells will fucking chase you into the sun and still hit you, red shells in this game are not all that and a bag of chips, you know? Like, red shells in this game are not that good. So you can dodge them, like, relatively fine. I'm gonna just use this here. Yeah, there we go. Government recently claimed that I'm a disease that needs a cure. You and me both, brother. I'm assuming this means, like, the government has announced its, like, war on autism. Yeah, bro, the boss. I was talking about that last stream. In fact, I think there's so much good material from last stream that basically every topic that I talked about, I think, is going to get turned into a segment. And one of them was indeed RFK Jr. and the Department of Health and Human Services' new crusade against autism and autists, particularly. Where the contention is that autism and the people who have it are, like, some fucking disease upon society, and how, like, we're not potty trained, I guess. Very weird of him to bring up that, like, autists are not potty trained as, like, an invective, or something. I feel like he's telling on himself a little bit for something. I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe he wasn't potty trained until he was like 7 years old or something. I don't know. But yeah, no, like, obviously all the shit that he's saying is false and like just made up. It's part of the eugenicist narrative. In order to justify purging the degenerates, like, you know, what Nazis would say are like dysgenic people, in order to justify killing, I guess what RFK Jr. would call the chronically sick, you have to convince people first. You have to manufacture the consent that they need to be killed, which means that, like, sometimes it's not enough just to say that they're degenerates. You have to make some kind of argument that they are a drag on society. And autistic people, by all, like, metrics, contribute to society in a lot of different ways, right? Like, I've explained before that so many fucking people have autism that it's, like, kind of a... It's a, like, now it's a socially acceptable thing to just kind of throw around jokes about, because it's like, oh, haha, you know, everybody has a touch of autism. It's kind of true. The way that we measure neurological spectrums are kind of, it's kind of arbitrary, and it's subject to a number of things, from genetic predispositions at birth to differing material circumstances that can affect people's social development, right? So, like, there are a number of things that can cause somebody to have or not have autism at any given moment. Some of them may be subject to change, some of them may not be, right? And so functionally what that means is that we have a society full of autists who are all doing great autistic things, smiley face. And you know, like, it's quite possible that the sort of mythical neurotypical person is more rare than somebody who is neurodiverse, like, insofar as having autism or ADHD, right? That's like the reality of it, but you have to manufacture the case that that's, like, not what's happening in order to justify killing autistic people. And more than likely, they would go after anybody who, like, cares about human rights or is, like, visibly autistic in the sense that, like, maybe they have some signs of being what they would call, like, what was it? Low functioning, where like they genuinely have a lot of trouble with very basic social stuff, you know? Makes me glad that the house has a secret basement. Hey, don't fucking out yourself like that. But yeah, you know. Yeah. What I'm trying to say here is that we are legion. Us the autists. The great American autists are legion. And there's no way for RFK Jr. to get us all, right? But he can manufacture enough consent, potentially, to start purging a few of us, and we basically have to stand together as one giant autistic rainbow of voices and say, fuck you, idiot, let us enjoy our trains in peace. You know? Because, like, what does he think, like, I know that he knows he's lying, right? But what does he think that people, like, picture autistic people as doing, right? The number one stereotype that I hear is that they really like trains. And that's true. You know what people who are autistic grow up to be? Fucking engineers, city planners, social scientists, economists, sociologists, like all the fucking different kinds of people that have lifelong passions and make society tick day in and day out are pretty likely to be autistic. Again, just because so many people fall under certain conditions that would be recognizable as autism. You know? But if he can, if RFK Jr. can kind of, like, weave some kind of narrative, as half-baked as it might be, that, you know, autists, like, people who have autism are like, just hungry mouths that don't contribute to society, then, like, he can be like, all right, great. Now let's begin our crusade against chronic sickness, by which I mean our crusade against the chronically sick, by which I mean I want to kill autistic people. You know? Like, it's just Nazi eugenicism. There was, like, I gotta be honest, the mask, were it not for the anti-vax portion of what he was saying, The mask for RFK Jr.'s aspirations was actually better laid than most. You know, when he talked about chronic disease, there are a lot of chronic illnesses that pose real problems in this country, precisely because of a lot of the failings of the American healthcare system. But I also knew, like everybody knew from the outset, that RFK Jr. was a massive anti-vaxxer and like fucking hated autistic people. Like that's the crux of being anti-vax. Like, oh, it causes autism or something. You know. So there were some critical cracks in that mask, but you know. Regardless, all of that is a fancy way, driven from both data and personal experience, to say that this is some Nazi shit, and like RFK Jr. is a Nazi, wants to kill, you know, the undesirables, except instead of just the Jews, he's talking about you know, the like the parasites, in parentheses, autistic people who like, I don't know, fucking do everything. You know, like imagine saying that, like, people, imagine saying that, you know how there are certain types of people where, or there are like different types of imagination where to varying degrees people can or can't see an object in their head, right? Like if I told you to imagine an apple, there's like different stages of like, you understand the concept of the apple, but you can't actually picture it, or you have a very vivid image in your brain of an apple and what that looks like, right? That people exist on a sort of spectrum like that. Imagine if I said nobody who can't picture an apple in their head holds a job or can use the toilet unassisted. You would be like, dog, what the fuck? You belong in a straitjacket. I see a red apple? Well, there you go. And that means that you are easily capable to imagine an image visually, right? Rather than just conceptually. You know, that's like one of the neurological spectrums that we know about that people fit somewhere along, right? So imagine if I got up there, instead of autism, was like, yeah, if you can't picture an apple when I tell you to picture an apple, like if you can't physically imagine an image like that, that means that you've never held a job, you can't use the toilet unassisted, you're a parasite on society, you are the chronically sick and you are killing society, and we need to, like, take care of you or something. Pepe emoji. Or like, whatever the fuck, right? Because that's about, like, how insane it is to say, like, yeah, autistic people are all parasites, you know? If autistic people didn't exist, who would ever post anything interesting or funny on the internet? Like, come on. People say being a leftist helps you process hypotheticals. Yeah, if you there is a strong correlative relationship, in some way it might even be causative, between being further left, having political imagination, being able to think rationally, and being able to deal with hypotheticals as a concept. Because being conservative relies on irrational, emotional, and disgust-driven thinking. Literally, if you are a conservative, it means you are not using your faculties of reason when you are thinking about, well, anything, really. You know, if you are a reactionary, if you hold conservative views, it means you're dumber. I know that sounds like mean as fuck, but there is genuinely data to measure that, like, people who are left-leaning are more introspective and like rational thinking, and capable of critical thought. And that's what makes people left-leaning versus right-leaning, you know? Because right-leaning politics is like driven by, like I said, emotion, disgust, and hatred. It's kind of like instead of being conservative, being a predictor of you thinking a certain way, it's more like thinking a certain way, or in this case, not thinking a certain way, is a predictor of you being more conservative. Does that make sense? I have to use this here, I think. Yeah, whatever. I was falling way too far behind. I didn't want to get, you know, last. Yeah, it's reactionary. Because you are having a very guttural and visceral reaction, and you are not thinking about your political positions. And of course, that's what RFK Jr. is counting on and utilizing in saying that, like, oh, no autistic person's ever held a job or anything like that. You know, because obviously that's not borne out in any sort of data. If you think rationally, you're like, now hold on a minute. That can't be true. And the people who are likely to eat up that sort of rhetoric are people who would already have a established base of like disgust and disdain for autistic people, or at least a caricature of an autistic person that they have in their mind. Frequently, you know, exposure to a certain type of people that's like frequently maligned in reactionary political narratives tends to eat away at that reactionary political narrative. It's just a fact of the world. You know? That's why cities are progressive, because when you live around other different, like, diverse groups of people, you learn that, oh yeah, they're just people. They just like me, for real. You know? Whereas if you're, like, in the countryside, RFK Jr. can go up there and be like, the Jew, I mean the autist, has devil horns and a forked tongue and a tail and will literally strangle you in front of your children, but also can't hold a job. And because you're in the countryside and everybody in your town is white, straight, and neurotypical, allegedly, you'll just believe that because you've never met an autistic person. How do you know if he's wrong or not? You think Canada would accept in the future if I ran there? Just thinking about my options. Yeah, I'm sure it, like, if you wanted to, if like moving to Canada would be a viable, like, plan of escape for people who are thinking about exit options from the United States. That's a viable option for sure. You know, in fact, you'd probably be more likely, like, as an American, they would probably be more willing to take you than most other groups of people for a couple reasons. Number one, because, like, racism. And, you know, we all know that anti-immigration sentiment is usually, like, more tooled against brown people than white people. But also because, just from a logistical perspective, Canada is a largely English-speaking country, right? And you, as an English-speaking adult from America, would be actually incredibly easy to integrate into Canada, compared to somebody from another country that didn't predominantly speak English, or even compared to raising a kid, you know, in Canada. So it's a valid option. $5.5 million American adults are on the autism scale, and I would be willing to bet that that is a significant undercount, you know? For a number of reasons. Again, like I mentioned, it's kind of hard to quantify certain things about who is or isn't on the autism spectrum because of, like, how many factors could determine whether somebody is or isn't autistic, whether that is subject to change or not, things like that. Anyways, speaking of immigration, what a segue. Let's get to the first news article that was of import today. So, I'm fully willing to admit that I was wrong on something that I predicted. I predicted that Kilmar Abrego Garcia, what was his full name? It was just Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Sorry, that's a little bit of a tongue twister for me. I'll just call him Abrego Garcia. I thought that he was dead, genuinely, with how hard the government was stonewalling efforts to bring him back. I thought he was dead or, like, in some horrid state of being tortured half to death. But no, Democratic Senator, Democrat Senator Chris Van Hollen went down to El Salvador recently, and managed to visit Abrego Garcia, and he is apparently alive and healthy, you know, and there is photographic evidence of that, you know, which is like small peanuts, but it's a relief nonetheless. You know, they relayed like some messages to his family while the senator was there. Though unfortunately, he's not going to be fucking released from custody. You know, figures, right? And I will still maintain that, like, it's entirely possible that they're planning to kill him. Because let's be real, this is not a just an ordinary kind of prison. This is a death camp, you know? It's, you know, a place where people go basically to be worked to death. And I'd be surprised if, you know, I'd be surprised if he wasn't, like, subject to some horrible shit behind the scenes. And also, with how much press coverage Abrego Garcia particularly is getting and has gotten, it does not escape me that it's a distinct possibility they kept him in relatively good health, specifically because they knew that eventually it would be, they would have to allow some form of media in to check on his present condition, you know? And I'll read the rest of the article in just a second here, but that, you know, that's the kind of conditions that exist at this at this super duper prison 2 even, and I remember hearing this somewhere. I'll have to confirm it, but I think they were like throwing people's belongings in a pile and like not really cataloging them in any meaningful way, which means this is a death camp. They're not planning to for the contingency of giving that stuff back, which means like they know that these people are being sent there to die. The prison, you know, staff and guards and stuff. Anyways, this article. Yeah. The Trump administration has said Abrego Garcia was mistakenly deported. El Salvador's president, Bukele, said he will remain in custody now that he's been confirmed healthy. El Salvador and their president, of course, are like client actors on behalf of the United States. That's just their way of saying, yeah, the American government has no intention of bringing him back, but they delegate that message to the Salvadorian government. Senator Chris Van Hollen confirmed on Thursday night that he has met with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the man whom the Trump administration said it had mistakenly deported to El Salvador in March. In court, mind you. They said it was a mistake in court. On TV, administration officials like Stephen Miller said he was a dangerous terrorist and a criminal, and also, like, he should have been deported, but also we can't get him back, but also, like, he said a bunch of different things. There were like 5 or 6 different contradictory things that they were saying on TV just to like justify defying the Supreme Court ruling and leaving him in El Salvador. I said my main goal for this trip was to meet with Kilmar. Tonight I had that chance. I've called his wife, Jennifer, to pass along his message of love. I look forward to providing a full update upon my return. And that is what Senator Van Hollen from Maryland. So this is this guy's senator. You know, he's a legal resident, so he doesn't have voting rights. But you know, if you are a legal resident, you can still write letters and phone calls. Make phone calls to your representatives and senators, so. But he wrote that on X, the Everything app. I think he also posted this on Blue Sky. I saw it on Blue Sky as well. That POW was in a good spot for me, I think. I'll have to scroll down the page, which means I'm not in a great position to do that. To be honest, your citizenship is a little bit stupid, or you have to be born on this land. I mean, it's better than what some countries have, where if you're born in the country, you don't automatically become a citizen. You know, we have, like, citizenship, the requirements for somebody to be a citizen are way too arbitrary and stringent if you weren't born here. But ultimately, like, you know, birthright citizenship is a fundamentally good idea. Like, this would be the only home that people have ever known. And also, like, it should just be easier to become a citizen if you move somewhere, right? Like, if you live somewhere, then yeah, that's where you live. That's your home now, you know? Like, it's kind of fucked up and dumb that you can live in the United States for 10 years and still not be eligible for citizenship. 10 years. Honestly, I feel like citizenship it should be about as easy to get as permanent resident status. You know? Because if you're a permanent resident, that means, like, yeah, you live here. Which means you are just as invested in the shape of, like, politics as any citizen would be, right? Like, I don't know. Seems really dumb, actually. Anyways. Images of Van Hollen's meeting with Abrego Garcia were first posted online by Salvadorian President Nayib Bukele, who has rebuffed calls to return Abrego Garcia to the United States, which means that the United States has declined to bring him back because El Salvador is basically a client state of the United States. You know, we're supplying them with prisoners. We hold an enormous amount of influence over them. Bukele was at the White House and basically just got talking points fed to him from the administration recently. Yeah, they don't want to lose their power fantasy. This is like, this is part of the political game or whatever, where it's like, oh, well, we don't want to have this, like, optically bad thing associated with us. Oh, I didn't mean to use 2 there. I don't know why my button did that. So we're gonna, like, delegate that message to this other country where they'll say, like, I don't know, man. I mean, there's nothing we can do. You know, it's out of our hands. And conveniently, it's another country that isn't the United States. All the while, the United States government also disingenuously argues, like, oh, well, you know, he's not in our jurisdiction anymore, tee-hee. So we have no authority to get him back, which is ridiculous, because he's only out of American jurisdiction because he was wrongly deported. You know? Really didn't come out. Beef boss. Yeah, like, being unaware of what the law is doesn't defend you, unless you're the government, in which case you have unlimited power because the Supreme Court pretended to also be unaware of the law at a very convenient time. Nice. Let's see. President Trump lashed out at Van Hollen on Friday morning in a post on Truth Social, saying the Democratic senator looked like a fool yesterday standing in El Salvador begging for attention. Ah, yes, me when I show any modicum of respect for human rights, definitely looking like a fool. I mean, do we really expect anything different from Trump? He's an old racist grandpa that really, really fucking hates, Hispanic people. And his government is full of Nazis, and there's kind of like a Joe Rogan effect, where Trump just kind of nods along and is like, yeah, great, good, yep, to whoever talked to him last. And when the people who are talking to him are Nazis, he's gonna agree with and say unhinged shit, you know? Yeah, here we go. Here's an example of what I was talking about, where the United States is disingenuously framing the issue as something that would be El Salvador's responsibility to take care of. Be like, we don't have to do anything. The Attorney General, Pam Bondi, said the same day that the U.S. would provide a plane for Abrego Garcia to travel back to the U.S. on if El Salvador allowed him to be released. So they were like, well, if El Salvador decides to release him, then we will provide a plane to bring him back. You know? Which is actually dissonant. Like, it's actually not quite the same as what people like Stephen Miller were saying. Because Stephen Miller, I remember, said, like, yeah, it was first of all, he lied through his teeth, and the administration's been saying the Supreme Court ruled 9-0 in our favor, haha, which is not fucking ominous at all. But he said, like, oh, you know, when they say effectuate or like fucking facilitate, they just mean we shouldn't block him from coming back if he ever tries to come back here. And meanwhile, the Supreme Court and district courts and federal courts below them are like, no, motherfucker, we mean bring him the fuck back here. Oh, got a little bit greedy with that shortcut. Okay. Oh, that was a good shock. Yeah, for the next year or whatever, however long, it's going to be like, wow, fascists are doing fascist shit. Let's see what happens tomorrow. Nice try, Funky Kong. You're literally laughing about it. Yeah, there's a part in this article that I'll get to in a second, which has what I think you're talking about. Where is it? Let's see. Pam Bondi, in a statement Thursday night, White House called Van Hollen's efforts in support of Abrego Garcia disgusting and said Trump will continue to stand on the side of law-abiding Americans. You mean law-abiding Americans like Abrego Garcia. Guys, there was a document released from the hearings, I believe, some of the hearings that were taking place on the status of Abrego Garcia, and the Department of Justice had like a file on him or something like that. And in this document that was submitted in court, it for his background, it was blank except for one sentence at the top that says subject has no criminal record. He isn't this is another case where it's not like they nabbed somebody that they knew had committed like a minor infraction of the law or something. Like they got somebody who was not even so much as suspected to have done anything illegal. This guy was like the most innocent man, like world's most innocent man gets deported to a death camp. And they're like, yeah, he was a dangerous, violent criminal. Source? Well, we know. Why? How do we know? Fucking stop asking questions. Yeah, if Democrats were even remotely competent, they would be all over this shit. They would be driving the media into the fucking ground to get this narrative home that Donald Trump and the administration and like every Republican doesn't give two shits about the law. They will arrest every single law-abiding American if it suits them. They want you scared. They want you terrified. They're a bunch of Nazis. And we have to overthrow their government. That's what they'd be saying if they were competent. And most importantly, it's what they would be saying if they believed in anything. But they're neither. They're neither passionate nor competent. You know? And there is a good amount of overlap there, obviously, but, you know. Just remember, whenever you catch some feelings for the Democrats, just remember that there's about a dozen of them in the House of Representatives that voted in favor of the bill that would basically strip all married women of the right to vote. Oh, that was a really good shock. Managed to let everybody else grow big at about the time they were going over that ramp. Well, there goes my lead. And before I get Mario Karted? Maybe not. But now I'm in 5th with no item. Okay, mushroom. Okay. Ah, I missed a trick, but I got the other tab up. It'll take me a second, but then I can continue. Michael. Oh, shit! That fake item box goes crazy. Let's see here. Legal battle continued Thursday when a federal appeals court rejected an effort by the admin to put the requirement on hold. In a unanimous ruling, a 3-judge panel said the administration was trying to assert, quote, a right to stash away residents of this country in foreign prisons without the semblance of due process. Oh yeah, I saw this just before the stream started. Yeah, the courts are acting surprisingly fast to say, no, you're not in your legal right to do this, you know? And yeah, this court did not mince words, and I'm glad they didn't. Because that's what they're doing. They're like, we don't like this guy, so we're gonna fucking put him in a foreign gulag, where he will never see the sun again. Hope you practice your cardio. Yeah. Is met Van Hollen. Let's see. Bro, it's not okay. Van Hollen said, oh yeah, their resistance to facilitate his return is to cover up his wrongful deportation. Bro, it's not a cover-up. They're okay with the fact that he was wrongfully deported and are not bothering to hide it. They're just trying to lie to fucking to fucking direct people's attention every which way, not so that people don't know what the truth is, but so they don't recognize it when they see it. That's not a cover-up. That's fascism. There is a distinct difference. A cover-up implies that you are trying to construct a narrative alternative to the truth such that people will not uncover the truth and be able to recognize it, you know, once they uncover it, right? Like, the thing about a cover-up is that there is a cover to be taken off. What this is doing is actually a little bit different than a cover-up because it's no longer, like, they're trying to construct so many lies that it becomes genuinely, like, very difficult to discern what is the cover and what isn't, so to speak, you know? You ever had any nightmares about fascism? Yeah, I think, not too long ago I had a nightmare that I was, like, going to prison, and it was, like, it was in a setting where you kind of start in the middle of a dream, but I knew that the reason I was going to prison was not because I had, like, committed a crime or anything. I was just going to prison, probably for some reason having to do with, you know, something. But I was, like, in prison, and then that was kind of the end of the dream. I don't know. I don't remember too much about it. I don't even know if I would call it a nightmare. It, you know, might have been a little bit of a stress dream, but I was kind of like, what? Why is this happening? What the fuck? You know? Don't know how I feel about that. Holy shit, I am getting so bumped this session. No, fuck. Here, I'm getting through. Look, I'm getting through the rest of this article now. Okay. Met with human rights groups. Yeah. Okay. So Democrats are still incompetent. Even this senator, who at least went down to El Salvador to meet with Abrego Garcia, still not very competent in so far as attempting to do anything good. Right? Presumably because they're too consultant brained. Well, not even presumably. We know that Democrats are way too fucking consultant brained. Ben Holland said after he tried to enter the facility alongside Chris Newman, the lawyer representing Abrego Garcia's wife and his mother, to check on the health and well-being of Kilmar, but was promptly denied entry. It goes on to detail some other stuff as well about how Abrego Garcia not only was a permanent legal resident, but also had been granted asylum status and protected status by a court order. Because he was like, I think one of the allegations that the administration made to like justify his imprisonment in El Salvador was like, oh yeah, he was a dangerous MS-13 gang member or something. But in reality, the reason he was granted protected status when he was like in court several years ago is because he was in danger of being like hurt by MS-13. He was fleeing from them, which is why the court granted him fucking protected status. That's about as not a member of MS-13 as you can fucking get. And also, who the fuck cares about like whether somebody is like a gang member or not? I know a lot of Americans do, because Americans are Hitlerites and don't understand that like people should have rights even if they've done something bad. But I think the court outlined this too. You get due process either way. Like, you are legally entitled to due process regardless of what you have done, you know? Like, that's kind of what due process means. It is due. Like, you are owed that much. Oh no, I cut that too tight. Yes, give me this box. Perfect. Stole second place. Some people think politics has no consequences. I'm not joking. Yeah, and this is a lie sold to people by media and a culture that does not want people to be politically aware, because that threatens the base of the powerful and the owning class. People are literally like, the average person actually holds a certain mindset to politics that either views it as a team sport or is roughly analogous to Obi-Wan in Revenge of the Sith, where he's like, oh haha, I'm not brave enough for politics, smiley face. And then politics actually fucks him over, like, immediately after that. I'm telling you, man, you should do politics, because politics is gonna do you regardless. You gotta pay attention. Or at least you gotta know where to pay attention. Let's see. Protected status. Yeah, here we go. Let's see. the U.S. began sending hundreds of undocumented immigrants to El Salvador in February after Secretary of State Marco Rubio, fucking neoconservative, new American century, fuck, absolute gusano. There's a special deep, dark pit in my imagination reserved for people like Marco Rubio. The guy who literally wanted America to be involved in a number of low-level wars throughout the 21st century so that we could, like, keep the rest of the world in check. Not propagating our power by, like, trade relationships and shit. Specifically advocating, yeah, what if we, like, did the plot of Metal Gear Solid, basically, where we just fucked up everywhere else with paramilitary operations and, like, private military corporations and mercenaries to like, fucking keep America on top. And this guy in February, as part of the U.S. government, brokered an agreement between America and El Salvador, where they fucking America is now like not extraditing, just shipping people to El Salvador. Gear was based. Yeah, Metal Gear Solid is based because it's saying, hey, you know all this fucking new American century shit and all of the, like, military-industrial complex? That's bad. Senator Armstrong in Metal Gear is not the good guy. That's why Metal Gear is based, is because it's saying, wow, look at what a shit state the world is in. Isn't that bad? We should fight back against this. And it's not like a convenient movie plot where there's one bad guy that you can topple to make it all stop. No, these are faceless systems of power that can propagate themselves irrespective of any one individual. That's why Metal Gear is based. And Marco Rubio was like, yeah, what if we made that, like, that absolute dystopian shithole of a world dominated by violence and, like, the fucking destruction of human rights and dignity a reality? Smiley face. And then, like, he's just allowed to do that, apparently. In fact, America did do that for the Bush and Obama terms, and also for the Trump term, and also the Biden term, to some measure. That's like what dictated a lot of American foreign policy, is the propagation of soft power by other means as well, but like particularly the military. Bukele, the president of El Salvador, at the time called the agreement an opportunity for the United States to, quote, outsource part of its prison system in exchange for a fee. Great. Cool. The two countries reached an agreement for $6 million to imprison deportees the Trump administration says are members of Tren de Aragua and MS-13. On Monday, Trump told Bukele, okay, this is where this article, like, fucking irked me when I skimmed through it before stream, right? Trump told Bukele he wants to increase the flow of people being sent to prisons in El Salvador and urged him to build more facilities. They conveniently leave out the part where Trump says that he wants to deport American citizens to El Salvador, and we should, that's why he wants El Salvador to build more mega prisons, is so he can start sending Americans, like natural-born citizens, there. I'm convinced every news channel is brain rot, and you'd be right to be convinced of that, because they are. Conveniently, that is the absolute last sentence in the article. They don't bring that up earlier. They save it for the very last sentence, and they exclude crucial information. God, I fucking hate the modern state of journalism. If you were any sort of, like, competent news org, if you were actually a news org that had principles, you would be talking, like, every other sentence, you would mention, by the way, this is what Hitler and the Nazis did. By the way, this is reminiscent of concentration camps. By the way, Trump said that he wants to deport American citizens here to this concentration camp where the press can't access, so we actually have no way of knowing whether people are being tortured and killed or not. You know, just so you know, this is Hitler shit, and the administration is literally full of Hitlerites for doing this. That's what a like, actually honest and principled news media organization would do. They had to elect to exclude that information when they were writing this article. There were TVs in the past, superheroes would be defending slave owners. Yes, they would be. You know why? Because there's superhero media nowadays where superheroes defend property owners and like business people. The same business people who want you to fucking work for nothing and want to reinstitute a slave, like very slavish working order and like social order. Ow. Shit. Dude, I'm getting absolutely junked this session. How Invincible gains money from prison systems? Yeah, that was the worst part of Season 3 for me. It served a decent enough purpose, right? That Invincible doesn't fucking know what he's doing, right? But yeah, that wasn't good, and I was like, yeah, you know, Invincible, I don't think you're such a good guy for this, for doing this. Even if they paint the prison as, like, some place where they send almost exclusively, like, people with superpowers, or who are, like, come into direct blows with superheroes, and fight back and forth or whatever. Like, you can make the prison as justified as you want to be. Being a prison guard for a prison is still a shitty thing, because even if you've done shitty things, you still have human rights, and the way that prisons operate in America is that basically it's their job to violate your human rights daily. Or maybe that's not part of the job description, but they, you know, they go above and beyond to make sure that you know that you don't have rights. I'll say that. You gave them terrible food on purpose? Yeah. It's like that in the real world, too, where prisons, you know, you don't get good food in prison, you don't get good shit. Because, like, the prison systems, like, the prison system in America just doesn't, like, treat prisoners as people. So there's only a bare minimum, and sometimes not even that, done to, like, I don't know, keep them alive, more or less. Yeah, I'm getting junked. Some of this has to be on purpose, but, you know, that's how Mario Kart goes, so. I'm taking that iron box, thank you. Damn it, my drifts aren't coming out now. Jesus. And before I get shocked right after the cannon? I guess not. I think it's faster to just do this. Maybe. Okay, that red shell isn't gonna make it over the gap. He's gonna throw that. Maybe not. Yeah, knew it. You can smug about it, invincible in each season. Yeah, prison guards are kind of like that in real life. There's some fucked up shit that prison guards do to prisoners. I've read some literature, like academic literature, some research on the conditions in prisons and how bad it is, and like basically the reason that it's that bad. And if you can believe it, like there's as much of like a mental health strain on the guards there as the prisoners, which is part of what leads the guards to behave in the way that they do. Because the guards are just there to hit people with a stick when they misbehave, they're gonna they're gonna do that. It's basically like a lot of cops are only the way that they are because they're trained to use their gun as like a first resort. Does that make sense? Nice try. Got absolutely junked on lap 1 and 2. Still got first at the end. They can't keep me down. If they weren't going to kill Abrego Garcia before, they might now. Or rather, they might let him die. It's less of a possibility in my mind that they straight up, like, covertly have him killed directly. More so, I think they're just going to let his sort of prison conditions deteriorate as attention fades away from him in the news cycle, such that eventually, like, he will be worked to death or deprived to death, like many other prisoners in concentration camps and death camps were / are today. You know? Especially if... especially with the executive asserting its authority like this above the court system. I know I like the other time I was talking about those potential scenarios where like the marshals could get involved. I don't think the marshals are getting involved at this point. Like I said, the marshals are part of the executive branch. Like, you know. And what would they do, right? What would they even be willing to do since they answer to the president? Getting closer to the 20th? Yeah, martial law only fucking 2 days away. Martial law is in 2 days, by the way. April the 20th is when they get the report. When they are going to give the report to the administration on the recommendation of whether or not to implement martial law, or not martial law, the Insurrection Act in the United States. I have no doubt that they are. And as a result, there's going to be martial law, but instead of as some kind of like Poindexter general from the Pentagon running things, it's going to be Donald Trump with literally unchecked power to do whatever he wants. You know, as if he didn't have that already, you know, shocker, right? But like, the Insurrection Act basically functions in like martial law insofar as your rights are suspended. You no longer have certain rights, such as the freedom of speech. Seriously, that's the main thing that disappears under martial law. Wait, we had rights? Yeah, hard to believe, but yes. But even in a system where you don't have rights, you can still like express dissent and stuff like that. You know, protests are still valid. That's just one of the circumstances where it becomes all the more imperative that you should probably go to protests with friends, so that like you know, when there's a group of you, it's like more of a deterrent from the government doing anything. That's what that means, basically. But now let's get to some good question mark news. This is one of the, you know, accelerationists are eating good moments. Can't wait till the median voter gets mad. We'll get those weird YouTube videos of it. We're actually already getting a lot more in the sort of YouTube pipeline of people being radicalized away from the far right. There's a lot more what I would consider to be like normie YouTube content. There's been quite a few things popping up on my feed of like TikTok Zoomers who are very progressive and criticizing the Trump admin. And I've talked at length before how YouTube fucking loves to recommend right-wing content to normies, right? So the fact that, and YouTube even recommends right-wing shit to me. On the side of these videos that were like left-wing, I'm still getting recommendations from like right-wing fucking Christian nationalist pro-AI YouTube channels. So I think this is actually indicative of a cultural shift, you know? like people saying like, oh yeah, there's an increasing genre of videos that are just like Trump supporters fuck around and find out. Like stuff that's really palatable, I think, for normies, you know, being like, yeah, the tariffs are coming. You voted for this. Watch the Trump admin fuck over their own voters and shit like that, you know? And there's a lot more people who are getting de-radicalized away from Trump, posting anti-Trump stuff to YouTube. And that gives me hope. That gives me a lot of hope, because it means that, like, you know, people, you know, are behaving basically how you would expect them to, right? Like, when their own livelihood is threatened, then, like, they react. Also, Isaac1827, welcome to the stream. Glad to have you here. And thank you for the follow, most importantly. Or actually, no, not most importantly. I rather people watch the stream than follow, but whatever. I have my preferences, it's fine. If the revolution happens, I bet you'd try to live stream it. I would. You're right. The revolution will, in fact, be live streamed, because I'll be there. What the fuck? The guy in front of me is John 316, as I'm talking about how, like, YouTube's recommending me fucking Christian nationalist shit. Clearly, this means something. Hello. I didn't hit him. It'd be funny if I hit him, but I didn't, so. It's Blue from Discord and Retro Rewind. Hope that you're doing well. Hey! Blue. Welcome to chat. And yes, I am actually, I'm doing quite well. Thank you for asking. I was just talking about current events. I was talking about how there seems to actually be, like, a genuine cultural shift where, like, you know, support for Trump is, like, dropping off a cliff really fucking fast. You know, haha, line go down, smiley face. That's the kind of stuff I tend to talk about on stream. And I got third. Whenever I see a spider, I'm like, poison it, die? No, spider is friend. Well, depending on how big they are. If they're too scary, then yes, kill that motherfucker. There are some small spiders that, like, live in my bathroom, and it's fine. He's crashing the economy just like that. Oh, yeah. Whenever they're in my house, yeah. That's fair, I suppose. Okay. I've said this before, but accelerationists are eating good. Anybody know what the Federal Reserve is? No? That's fine. Nobody does. It's the National Bank. I know what it is because I'm cool. Do I know how it works? Not really. But I do know that they set interest rates for loans and stuff. Currently, the chair of the National Bank is a guy called Jerome Powell. He's one of them fiddly old, like, bankers who's a nerd. And he sets Fed policy, right? And Trump's not happy with him because Trump is like, the interest rates, it'll be great. It'll be beautiful. Like nothing that you've ever seen before. It'll be 0% interest. Borrowing money, it's going to be so easy. You can take out a loan. We won't even charge you interest. Imagine that. But it's a loan, so you still have to pay it back. It's one of the levers of, like, Keynesian economics or whatever, being, like, making it easier or harder to borrow money from the federal government at, like, a low interest rate makes the economy, like, turn more or less depending on the moment. Like I said, it's fucking complicated. I don't really understand the like mechanics of it, but what I do know is that low interest rates are pretty not good, actually, despite the fact that it makes it really easy to borrow money in a way that's, like, not super prohibitive to pay back. What it does mean is that people borrow money a lot more, which means that money circulates a lot more in the economy, which means more inflation, because when you're borrowing money, that money is kind of, like, created out of thin air, right? That's kind of how monetary policy works. The government can sign a loan for $1 million to somebody that it doesn't have, right? Or that it just created. That's like $1 million that somebody's borrowing that straight up didn't exist before. That's part of, like, the authority of a national bank. They can create money like that, you know? So Donald Trump wants the interest to be low. He wants beautiful, low, 0% interest rates. It'll be great. It'll be beautiful. Like nothing the world's ever seen. America is going to be great again, again, and again. It'll be bigger and better. And Jerome Powell's like, no, you fucking moron. Because, you know, right now, because there's like a affordability crisis and whatever, and because there's a recession coming, people are more inclined to save money, right? Higher interest rates incentivizes people to save money. And from a perspective of like national economic policy making, it's usually a good idea when times are tough to incentivize people to hold on to their money, because that's like an efficient use of that money. You don't want to make the problem of the debt economy even worse than it is, right? So in this case, even though there's no good guys in this case, Jerome Powell's trying to be smart, and Trump is trying to make the interest rates a big fat goose egg. And to that effect, we've seen there's some tension. Jay Powell made it clear Fed is not going to rescue markets. I have an article up from Yahoo News. And then Trump has like alluded to, like, he's not doing the job. He's not doing a good job. I'm really not happy with him right now. Not happy. Not at all. And so even though there's like, even the mechanism of hiring and firing somebody to like be the chair of the Federal Reserve is really complicated, and the president may or may not have the authority to, you know, hire or fire somebody like that, Trump is probably going to fire Jerome Powell from the Federal Reserve and try to find somebody to put in charge that is as insane as he is. So you know how the economy is already fucking crashing out and like genuinely tweaking because Trump announces tariffs every fucking 5 minutes and then says, just kidding, we're not doing the tariffs, even though we already did the tariffs. Now, on top of that, we're going to have a national bank that's just as unhinged as he is. And so the national banking system is going to start fucking tweaking and like, you know, the economic crash out we're going to see as a result of this will be fucking biblical. All right. That's what I'm trying to say. And as accelerationists, we want that shit. We're the sickos looking in through the window going like, haha, yes, right? That's what position we're in right now. Because that destabilizes the government, right? The government being responsible for an economic collapse like this, which the government always is in some measure, makes the government destabilize. It undermines people's trust in the government to the extent that they had trust. And it makes it more likely that like massive protests break out and shit like that, you know? And we want that to happen because if the economy doesn't crash out hard enough, then they just kind of get away with fascism for longer, you know? Basically, imagine it like the United States is like 1930s Germany right before World War II starts. And we're thinking like, okay, what can we do to stop Germany from doing all the shit that it did in World War II and like during the Holocaust? I know, let's make their economy crash out so hard that like people get pissed at the government and overthrow it, because the government rides on like public support mostly from whether or not it's able to like economically pacify people, you know? That was the case in Nazi Germany, where the Nazis were like, hey, we rescued you from the Great Depression. In reality, the rescue from the Great Depression was happening with or without the Nazis, but like they were able to use that. But if they didn't have that, then they would have nothing, basically, to prop themselves up. What are they going to do? Storm the White House? You joke, but it's not out of the question. Remember, there have been protests like the Euromaidan in Ukraine, where the protesters literally stormed the presidential palace, and the president had to flee the country. You know, the kind of civil unrest I'm talking about here would be like really, really massive, you know? If a biblical economic crash out happens to rival the Great Depression, then yeah, people would be mad enough to start organizing and protesting near like really prominent government buildings, including the White House. And like, yeah, they might actually storm the White House if they're mad enough at the administration, you know? And that takes time, but in order for that to happen, we need the Trump administration to keep, like, shooting itself in the foot and in the dick, which they would be doing by firing, like, basically the only competent person in the whole government. And it's really funny that the only competent person in the whole government is a banker. What would they do? Put pictures of it on Twitter? I mean, if you're storming the White House, like, I don't know, I'm not going to make specific predictions, right? But, like, what I'm talking about basically is like, to put it in LARPy terms, revolutionary conditions brought on by economic hardship leading to a revolution from below, which overthrows the government and puts a new government in place. There is nothing the government can do to stop a public uprising if enough people are on board with it. Even, like, as fascist a government as you want to have, eventually it's just there's more of us than there are of, like, government sickos. And yeah, I mean, like, pictures are going to be uploaded to Twitter and shit of like, really big protests and uprisings and stuff that happen, but, like, yeah. Ow. I have 2 bananas in 8th place. What a time to be alive. Nice. Outlined, idiot. I'm gonna use this here. Yeah. Even our revolutions are social media pilled? I mean, yeah. I mean, like, revolutions in the social media age happen, like, on social media and stuff, too. Like, people post video of that shit. You know? Just like revolutions back in the day would be, you know, posted in the newspaper or like, filmed on television cameras or whatever. Yeah, revolutions today, since there's social media, are going to be posted on social media. Think about what's happening in Burma right now, or Myanmar, rather. I never know which like name to use at any given moment, right? There's a revolution going on over there, and the democratic revolutionaries are like posting shit to Twitter and Blue Sky. So anyways, that's bad in parentheses good, whereas other stuff that's happening is just bad in parentheses bad. But those were the only 2 news things that I wanted to talk about, because like, there were some fun stuff that I wanted to talk about that didn't involve that. Some of it having to do actually with some of the like more pedestrian Zoomer shit on YouTube. And when I say pedestrian Zoomer shit, this is even still like a lot of Zoomers care a lot about things that you just never fucking heard about like 15, 20 years ago. You know, the kids are all right, is what I'll say about that. They're mental health pilled. I saw some videos on YouTube recently of Zoomers talking about like traumatic childhood upbringing and bad parenting experiences and stuff like that. And it genuinely seems like people know a lot about like signs of abuse and how to recognize it. One of the greatest W's of progressivism, one of the biggest failures of conservative ideology, is that kids are more likely nowadays to recognize when they're being abused and to better prepared to protect themselves and like, you know, cut off toxic family members and stuff. So it's like, it can be kind of a grim topic, but I found it interesting nonetheless. And it actually reminded me of a really funny story that happened when I was a kid. Now, of course, this does not involve abuse. I would not consider it abuse because it was extremely funny, and at the time, like, no harm came to me. There was no, like, fucking, like, I don't think it's fair to characterize this as abuse because I was not harmed physically or mentally or anything like that, you know? It was just me being a little shit for, like, 2 seconds. So, I remember when I was little, right? We used to visit, my grandparents a lot who live, in the States, who live not too far from here. And by not too far, I mean 3-hour car ride, which is really fucking far if you're European. But in America, that's, like, not bad. I remember one time when I was like 5 years old, I think my parents had to do something, and they were like, basically they were like, okay, can we leave him here with you, to my granddad, my grandma and grandpa, and they were like, yeah, sure, you know, we'll look after him for a couple days, because obviously they're parents, you know, they raised my dad, and my dad raised me, and my mom also raised me. So I remember the one day, like, that I was there, like I imagine most kids experience, it's like, all right, time to take a bath, bucko. And I, like, really didn't want to take a bath. And I remember I started throwing a tantrum or something like that. Or like, tantrum light, where I was like, but I don't want to. I started complaining, like, a little louder and a little louder. And my granddad did something that was, like, even at the time, I was like, what? That, like, damn, bro, that's crazy. But now I find it to be extremely funny, which is that he got a certain expression on his face that my dad also gets sometimes when he's frustrated. Like, that kind of expression where you can kind of see the gritted teeth behind his mouth. And he's like, you know, looks like he wants to start saying, like, grumbling really frustratedly. And he basically just made that face for a second. And, like, squatted down and just picked me up by the armpits. And, like, without saying anything, he just fucking walked upstairs, like, carrying me, and put me in the bathtub. and then I was like, shit, okay. Like, I remember thinking to myself, all right, fuck it, all right, I'll take a bath, sure. And you know, it was super quick, and it got me to shut up, and I was like, all right, sure, I'll take a bath. Clothes on, yeah, I like, he put me in the bath, and then he left. And so, like, after he did that, I was like, okay, I'll take a bath, fine. And so I took my clothes off, and I ran the bath water and took a bath. And then that was it. He helped me dry off and stuff afterwards. And then, like, from that point onward, I, like, never complained about taking a bath again. Because I kind of realized, like, man, you know, that, I guess that is kind of annoying, huh? You know, and it's, like, a pretty silly thing to complain about, having to take a bath and whatever. And that doesn't mean, like, that I took a bath every day from then on, because I was still, like, a stinky kid or whatever. But it definitely, it informed some stuff that I decided later on, which is like, yeah, I'll just take a shower. You know, it's, you know, supposed to be clean, be good and clean. But now I look back on that, and it's actually, like, extremely funny. Because, like, I feel like for some parents, the instinct would be, like, you wrap the kid on the arm, or, like, you get kind of mad, you start yelling at them, or something like that. I don't know, I feel like my granddad, like, locked the fuck in, and he was like, you know what? You're going in the bathtub. And, you know, obviously with the benefit of hindsight, I was like, yeah, you know, I was being a shitty little kid, you know, didn't want to take a bath. I feel like if I was faced with a similar scenario where it's like, it's little me and big me is looking down at him, listening to him complain about taking a bath or whatever, I would just pick him up and put him in the bathtub. And like, all right, take a bath later. When I was babysitting, my older brother's children were like, please do this. And they're like, no. And then I'm like, I did all I could do. Yeah, sometimes you have those moments too. It's like, well, shit, I guess I can't, like, literally compel them to do that shit, you know? You know, like you can try to pull the Steven Universe thing where you fucking explain in several paragraphs why you should do something or like why it'd be good to do it actually. But then like you know, they still don't do it. I don't know. I figured I would share that because it was something I thought about recently, and like hearing people talk about their experience with their parents growing up reminded me of that one experience with my grandparents or with my granddad. And again, I think it was like optimal decision making. You know, he didn't yell at me, he didn't hit me, he just fucking picked me up and put me in the bathtub. Why I should become a terrorist, that's true. Cue the video of that kid like, I would like to be a terrorist, and then the other kid like slaps him. Like the whole class reacts or some shit. Ah. The kid is a legend. That's true. I miss him. If nobody else got me, I know, like, little aspirational terrorist kid got me. The Void, hello, welcome back to chat. I had a big dog, which sometimes didn't want to go, outside, and oh, whoa, I looked away for fucking 2 seconds and I can't. Okay. Alright. Didn't want to go outside, just picked him up, and he was weirded out because I was like the same size as him. Oh yeah, that would throw me off. Somebody the same size as me, like, picking me up. Be like, what the fuck? I've been kind of getting fucked up this session, for those just joining. Anyway, shoutouts to my granddad, who will never see this. But yeah. That's why he's the GOAT or something. He also, okay, this is another funny story about my granddad, which is like, this one's a little bit meaner, but like also really funny. When my dad was a kid, he told me stories of this where like, he had a lot of really good experiences with his dad playing sports with him and stuff. But he said one of the other things that his dad would do, which was like really mean, was that they used to have dogs, right? Like my dad had dogs growing up. And one thing that my granddad would do to the dogs, or with the dogs, would be like, whenever he wanted to like mess with them, he would make vacuum cleaner noises with his mouth and run around the house. Like, and just run around chasing them. And I was like, bro, that's fucked up. But I was like laughing really, really hard. Perfectly sane human? Are you kidding me? I'd do the same thing. Terrorism as a Spanish anarchist. This fills me with a great sense of accomplishment. Based. Spanish anarchist detected. Terrorism enjoyers. Rise up. Baby dogs, when you pick them up, are all chill, but adult dogs, when you pick them up, start freaking out. Yeah, that's true. It's like how baby humans are chill when you pick them up, but then adult humans, when you pick them up, start freaking out. I imagine it's kind of the same thing. I'm weirded out sometimes by cats' irrational fear of water. Like, look, I'm touching and it isn't killing me. Yeah, I never really got that. Cats really, really don't like water. Which is, like, I don't know why that is. There are some cats that actually live largely near the water and in the water. There's one species of cat that, like, will walk in, it, like, will fish mostly for its source of food, because other sources of food are pretty scarce, and it's, like, adapted for that. And there's, like, a lot of wild cats, you know, like, not domesticated cats that will fish in the streams and like do that stuff as they're able to as well. But, like, yeah, my cat and like, domesticated cats will fucking, like, they see, like, a sink full of water or some shit, and they're like, what the fuck is this? I'm not going near that. But then my cat will literally try to walk on the stove, and I'm like, no, you can't do that. It will kill you. It's like autism with their fur being wet. Oh, you know, that makes a lot of sense. Electrics, I am not interested in challenging first right now. I'm just interested in not getting hit by a blue shell. I think that's fair assessment of my play here, and that's my expectation right now. That's what I want out of this. Okay, guess I'm getting this item. It'd be weird, but I like the feeling of water on hair. It's not something I've thought about that much, but, you know, I'm definitely not, like, scared shitless of it, like cats. Skill issue, I guess, or something. This is gonna be quite a task, but I'm gonna try to maintain second. Ah! That green shell was very close. No, why didn't you slow down, you fuck? You might hit a banana or something. Yeah, too hard. Okay. Give me an item. That's perfect. If I get third, I will be quite happy with this. Okay. I didn't need to know that. But you do you, I guess. Okay, cool. Bet you some adults would pay people to pick them up? Yeah, true. That's probably true. You know, one of my cousins, the youngest one, in fact, whenever we see each other, I like hugging people when I meet them. It's nice, smiley face. He gives me a big old bear hug and, like, picks me up because he plays football. and I'm like, all right. Yeah, we don't need to know the search history. Don't worry about it. Giant vampire. Oh yeah, the Lady Dimitrescu situation is crazy. At the what does Markiplier call it? The Dimitrescu Dimmadome. Holy shit, that man is funny. So many people are thirsty for that woman, that very large vampire lady. I am no exception to this. She can, in fact, sit on me. I would like that, in fact. Great, cool, thank you. Did you guys need to know that? No, but I'm the streamer guy, so I decide what gets aired and you know what doesn't. Thank you, very cool. I think she's ugly? Really? It's, like, it's not my favorite aesthetic, but I think she's pretty. Like, she's pretty, inspired by, well, not even inspired by, she's dressed in 1920s, fashion, women's fashion, from the mid-1920s, I want to say. Let's be honest, what we're talking about, she doesn't my thing. That's fair. What we're talking about is so much better than what's happening in real life. True, and that is justification enough for me to keep talking about it. Hell yeah. Imagine why people in the, okay. You got me. Ow! Okay. I'm gonna go this way. I think there's items this way. Never had to go this route before on a golden mushroom, but okay. Perfect chain, let's go. All part of the plan. Never mind, that's what I meant to say. This was all part of my plan, you fools. Grunge, slightly depressed, chubby trans girls. That is peak. You're 100% correct. I actually feel so fucking lucky to have some of the those kinds of like the features that I would find really attractive that I only realized recently are like something that might really be somebody's thing or might really not be somebody's thing, like having circles under my eyes just naturally. Like my eyes look like they have like some kind of eyeliner applied, but that's just how my eyes look. Also, my eyelashes are really long. I don't wear fake lashes. Again, that's just how my eyes look. Oh, they're gonna do the thing at the end? Oh, maybe not. Once you go queer, you can't go back. That's true! That's so true. Nothing good's happening in real life. Not like my country has federal elections in 10 days. Oh, is Canada having them federal elections? Oh, that's right. Yeah, Mark Carney, after he became the new prime minister. Yeah. April 28th. Okay. I heard from the recent debate, right? The recent English language debate, not the French language debate, that like Mark Carney faced some scrutiny about like his stance on Israel-Palestine, and that actually made me wonder. I do think that could potentially like affect the outcome of the election because, you know, people care about that shit. It did make me wonder. I hate everyone in this election. That is fair. It made me wonder how long are Canada and other Western countries, with the exception of the US and the UK, because both those countries are fucking cucked. Thank you. How long is the West going to continue to support Israel now that the like main driving supporters of it, the institutions that are like the axis of support for Israel, right? Like the military-industrial complex and MIC capital, right? Those are the reasons that countries support Israel in that sort of situation, right? Now that the military-industrial complex has been completely retooled against liberal democracy and is like just the most militant, like fascist pillar in America and the UK, it seems like. Isn't it about time, basically, for Canada and like all these other countries to start pivoting away from supporting Israel here? It would only make sense, right? I think I've even seen France start to move in the direction of officially recognizing Palestine and taking a much more critical stance of Israel. And yeah, I know that Spain also officially recognized the state of Palestine. W for Spain. You know, like basically a lot of the reason that Western countries supported supported Israel is because America supported Israel, supports Israel, and they were all allies with us. It was part of a geopolitical relationship, like that came with some baggage, but you have to have the baggage with that relationship. Does that make sense? But like now that the United States has decided to alienate all our allies, what is like genuinely what is any of the material force that is stopping them from like supporting Israel, or is there really one, right? Like their military industrial complexes in Europe are not, like, with the exception of maybe Germany, not as pro-Israel as you know, the US seems to be, right? They'll probably go the direction just to say they the same direction just to say they were never wrong? Possibly? Possibly. I don't know. This is genuinely like a moment where I question that. And especially like it came to mind because Mark Carney and the Liberal Party of Canada has started to face a lot more scrutiny for not being pro-Palestine. You know? And I wonder, like, is there even any, like, that's a significant amount of pressure that's been alleviated from them now that, like, America has decided, fuck you and the horse you rode in on. So they're like, okay, why do we need to support Israel again? I mean, like, we were only doing this because we were allies with America, right? But if America is no longer allies with any of these countries, like, do they still need to do that? Also, I'm cracked. Also, get this fucking bot out of my chat. Thank you. I'm a fucking genius. I did that as I was in the air from the cannon. Twitch moderating while driving. Front run Rainbow Road, win by a mile. I don't know. I don't know. There's not a whole lot I can say to that effect, just because it was a question in my mind that I don't really have a good answer to. Obviously, if things hold relatively steady, it's expected that the Liberals are going to have a majority government in Canada, which I think is preferable to the, you know, the Conservatives having a majority government, right? But like, fucking, you know, what does that mean? Like Keynesianism light, you know, like neoliberal shit. You know, they're definitely not getting a solution to the housing crisis, that's for sure. Biggest thing to do basically for the left is get an online presence and hold on the discourse. Yes, that's a really important thing, to get a hold on the direction of the discourse online, but then also like to foment discontent, which we've had help in doing from actually the most incompetent fascists alive, because their actions make people naturally very discontent, because it's like, let's just make the economy fucking crash out like it's on that gas station Zaza. And then, like, everybody sees that and they're like, well, shit, I can't make my mortgage payments anymore. I can't fucking pay rent. What the fuck are you doing? And then, you know, all it takes is for one person to be like, see, it's all fucked up. They got all their oligarch daddies telling them what to do. And it also helps how fucking useless the Liberals are being, because they can't claim to be the saviors or anything, because we all know, everybody knows, that the Liberals would just get into office and do absolutely nothing. That one's gonna take maybe more time, though, for people to realize the whole fucking system is a load of bullshit. But yeah, I see what you're saying, for sure. Right took over the internet, the left, stunted politically with the discourse. Yeah, the was it like the 2000s to 2010s, like the Tumblr left or whatever the fuck? Yeah, that shit didn't help, for sure. But also, like, the right wing has had total, like, news media capture for a long time, and they're now trying to more directly use that capture to their advantage, you know? Oh, those two guys in top two are way up there. That was rough. I had to not low trick that to not get hit. Ow. Liberal history manipulation should be counted as a superpower. That's true. That's big facts. No, I can die it again. Yeah, the two fucking parties. Center-right and far-right. Love my fucking neoliberal regime, late-stage capitalism, etc. Actually, so cringe started. I started liking a bunch of them just to get them on my feed so I can see how bad it gets. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but sure, like, go off. I might do that from the safety of, like, an alt account or something, but yeah. There is no bottom to the fucking right-wing social media barrel. And that's, like, that's actually, like, kind of matters, because it's, like, oh, it's not your main? Okay, good. Yeah, don't do that shit on main. Like, the more bottom of the barrel right-wing posting is, the more, like, 4chan and terminally online it gets. The more it's... I almost got hit by that, holy shit. The more it's, like, unconvincing, right? It, like, all morphs into the same hodgepodge of right-wing slop with the same 2 or 3 points over and over again. You know? Happy News 4chan is down? You're right. I saw about that a little while ago. 4chan down. And thus the world was at peace for but a brief moment. Because no more 4chan. This will probably be my last race. Big W? Yeah, true. Some Republicans can't wait till the final solution happens. I mean, yeah, that's kind of their whole thing, right? Like, the Republicans are currently in the phase of putting on a show of selective deportations where they establish all the precedent to violate people's rights left and right, just to fucking placate their base and whatever, throw them the red meat, you know, like they do all the mass deportation shit, you know, and then they've like outsourced all this shit to El Salvador. But eventually there's going to come a point where it's economically untenable to keep up that kind of effort while they're making the economy crash out. And what do you think that, like, of course, when that point comes, they're going to default to, why don't we just start, like, killing them and whatever? That's a lot less expensive. That's the exact same pipeline, actually, that the Nazis went down. Originally, the Nazis were happy to just, you know, brutally torture and imprison Jews in concentration camps and use them for their labor, right? And then, because they needed more equipment and economic material and materiel for the war effort, they started having to like cut costs and like basically balance the budget, in parentheses Hitlerite. So what they did was they were like, well, do we really need to like even provide the bare subsistence for Jews in the concentration camp or whatever to keep them alive, because that costs money? And they were like, no, I mean they're already like subhuman, so I guess we don't. And so that was kind of the origin of the final solution, is it just decided, yeah, let's just kill them all. And, you know, from the documentation we have of meetings where this was decided, it really was that casual. Like, they just all got in a room and they were talking about the Jews as though they were like a vermin problem that they were having a hard time taking care of with current means that were like more expensive than they would like them to be, right? And you know, we're witnessing a very similar pipeline take place with the with this administration, but it's actually kind of less targeted. It's not quite as targeted as the at least ethnically targeted is what I mean to say, than like what Nazi Germany did to the Jews. You know? Also inspired of the American repression of lower-class citizens. Yes, I am indeed aware that Nazi Germany took a lot of inspiration from America. Yeah, okay. Currently, we're in the whole, like, mass deportation, except we can't do that, so we'll do some selective show deportations. And put the... Oh, I said that would be my last race, but yeah, I'll do one more. I guess I don't really want to go out like that. You know, like, the the selective deportations to put on a show and imprisoning them so that we can do the whole law and order talking points, despite the fact that we're blatantly violating every law known to man. It's not going to be too long before they look for ways to cut costs that don't involve all the dumb shit that they're doing to make the economy crash out. And one of the costs they're going to cut is anything that keeps these people alive, you know? Or maybe it might not even be as... It might not even have the bare rational veneer of like, we need to cut costs. They might eventually just be like, yeah, it's like cumbersome to keep them alive or something. I don't know, we could just kill them. Trying to find this comment. There's somebody who commented entire paragraph under a YouTube video basically saying Mark Carney's a Jew and you shouldn't vote for him because of that. I had to get off social media for the night after that. It was so bad. That's a good, like, the opposite of a wake-up call. That's a fucking I need to log off and go to bed call. What a world. Honestly, like, over-under odds whether that person was even real, right? Like, half the fucking Nazis on YouTube are either bots or, like, and the other half are basically indistinguishable from bots. Oh no. Imagine that Trump speech that, like, we're still trying to find it? Dang. I'm gonna throw this. That's gonna hit. Yep. Well, okay, that was close. Trump's speech of him saying we're gonna kill your uncle because we don't want to pay for his healthcare. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of, it'd be kind of like that. It would probably just be like like that speech, like we don't wanna, and then they start killing large numbers of migrants. Oh, I didn't quite get him. Okay, third place. That's fine. Okay, that's a much better last race than the other one would have been. Luigi. Okay. Eh. Imagine we get that Germany voting picture meme. Oh, is that the do you mean the meme with the ballot where it's like the ja is really big and then the 9 is small and in the corner? I mean, we already kind of get that, right? The way that ballot measures, certain ballot measures and referendums are worded is designed to influence people to vote one way or the other. You know? It, like, imagine it's there's like, will you vote yes on the Protecting Women's Beautiful Roses and Rights Act or something like that, and it's like revokes all rights for women or whatever and relegates them to the household. It's funnier when it's more obvious. Yeah, that's true, I guess. I guess it is a little bit more like when it's a little bit more, when it's not as visually obvious, right? When it's not the ja is the big circle and the 9 is the little circle. It's a little bit more just like fucking ominous and terrifying, where it's like you get your ballot in the mail, which you're not going to be allowed to do for very long if the SAVE Act gets passed. And it says like, vote yes on the Protecting Puppies from Stupid Illegal Migrants and Criminals Act or something like that. You know? And it's like, yes or no. And then you look up the law that's phrased as the like, unicorns and rainbows are good and criminals are bad law. And it's like, yeah, you no longer have rights. And if the government deems you to be a violent criminal, we can just kill you, like shoot you in the back of the head or something. And like that to me, when the both circles are the same size, but then you have some shit like that, some Orwellian shit, that is a little bit more scary than, will you vote for Hitler? Yeah, big circle. Nine, little circle. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Like, oh, this is fraud, and the Republican wins. Yeah. I mean, they literally, they passed an EO, like an executive order that gives them basically the authority to do that. Free and fair elections are pretty done in this country for a good amount of time. Like, genuinely, I think, I genuinely think, with the exception of, I think, like some North Carolina shit that's happening, I haven't kept up with that. The last significant, like, election in this country that was free and fair might have been the one that I phone banked for in Wisconsin. Like, any of the elections that have national renown, I have serious doubts that they will be even remotely fair because of, like, what the Republicans are doing. Younger me would do the smaller circle because I'm lazy. Modern me would do the smaller circle and then take a picture and put it on Twitter. Nice. And then the government would be like, well, we don't like this ballot, so we're going to tell people to vote again. I think that's what they're doing in North Carolina, actually. They're like, we don't like the results of this election, so we're going to tell 35,000 fucking people that they need to vote again. Otherwise, we're going to throw out all their votes. Like, they can just do that, I guess. Is it legal? Probably not, but, like, who's going to stop them? What happens if it's, like, an infinite loop? What? Oh. Well, they just do it until people get, like, apathetic enough to not vote, and then the Republican wins by default, and then all the artifice of there being free and fair elections is gone. Because, like, it's pretty evident that they're just going to say, we don't like the results, vote again, until the Republican, like, wins the election, right? At that point, why don't you just shoot the opponent? Well, you need a veneer of legitimacy in the government. There's a significant difference. Like, that's the kind of squashing the opposition that would make headlines in a way that makes you look bad. There's a significant difference. Like, even Vladimir Putin doesn't always assassinate his political opponents, right? Like, even the most full-on fascist dictatorships don't always do that. What they'll do is just sabotage the integrity of the vote, so they can, like, basically just manipulate the numbers and be like, oh, yeah, see, Vladimir Putin won with 79% of the vote, smiley face. Or, like, 84% of the vote, or whatever the fuck they want to do. And that way they can, like, keep spying on their political opponents and whatever, and not necessarily just kill them every time. Because that tends to make people mad. In addition to making people scared, which of course it does make people mad to such an extent that they become desperate. They start forming connections. They start, like, eventually, if you just do that, it's like pushing against Oobleck. You're pushing too hard. You know, when you're pushing against a non-Newtonian liquid, you have to go slowly so that your hand sinks in and you get through. If you just try to slap it, your hand will bounce off. That's what made neoliberalism so successful in pacifying people, and it's why fascism is such an activating force, right? Because neoliberalism is the slow decline that will keep people pacified, and that genuinely can kill activism. But fascism, being just a faster version of neoliberal decline, which neoliberalism eventually arrives at all the same, has an activating effect. Because people see things happening so fast that it activates them. That they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, it's the frog in the boiling pot. And fascism is when you turn the water up too quickly. You know? That's what that would be, basically. That's why Republicans aren't just shooting Democrats in the back of the head yet, because they still understand, at least in principle, they can't turn the boiling water up on the frog in the pot all at once. I have stalled for enough time. Cody is now live. Perfect. I can raid Cody Schwab. Oh, baby. All right. Yeah. Look, despite how bleak things are, do not lose Jope, because you losing Jope is exactly what the fascists want. They actually can't win if you maintain your sense of Jope and optimism, right? If you keep acting as though, yeah, if you lose hope, you die. You need to keep acting as though the fascist government needs your permission to do what it does, and you are not giving that permission to them. That's how government works. Even dictatorships, especially dictatorships, need... oh, wait. / raid Cody Schwab. Raid Cody Schwab. Okay, cool. I spelled his name wrong a couple times. My B, Cody. Yeah, like, dictatorships need your consent, the consent of the governed, in order to do any of their shit. So don't give them that, you know? They actually can't, like, if you say make me, they actually do have to make you. They can't just fucking do it anyway. And it's better that you do that with friends. Smiley face. Anyway, see you next time. Enjoy Cody Schwab.